All right, welcome back to another edition of My Checka, the show where I talk to dope people doing dope things. This is just a beautiful thing that I got this brother on with me. He is a therapist. He's an educator. He's all about the people, all about what are you doing with your conversation? How are you doing your mental health awareness? I mean, bro, you getting your doctorate now too, right?
Yeah, I was working on that. Actually, paused it a little bit because my mom was dealing with some bladder cancer, so I had to step out of the program. But I'm eventually circle back to it.
Yeah, so we gonna claim it now. You already a doctor. We gonna claim it. You know what I'm saying? Off
Ah,
the strength. We gonna
right.
claim it.
I
My boy
received it, brother.
Etoya White. Thank you for coming on My Checking, man. I appreciate it, brother.
Man, no doubt, man. It's a privilege, man. I was just telling Babe, like I met Daryl, man, way back when I was doing stuff with the St. Louis Gateway Classic Sports
Yeah.
Foundation. Bro came in and was doing a session on hip hop, and I had just was talking to the young people about ACT and college stuff, and we
Yep.
just clicked, man, and had the conversation and just kind of been touching base ever
And it
since.
so circles back, man. And if everybody
Long
doesn't
time
know,
ago, bro.
Tracy that was on one of the first My Checkers of period. This is her fiance right here. So
Yeah,
it's
man.
just dope people, just meeting dope people, man. And that's it, and it's all about that good energy and that good vibes. When you see other people, that's dope. But other people, you like, oh yeah, it makes sense.
For sure, no doubt. Yeah, that's the spirit, man, and that's how the vibrations work, bro.
Yeah, so let's dive in, man, before we get into more of your career, like your upbringing, where you came from, things like that. So, what is your kind of background, who you are, where you from, like when you were a child in your youth and coming up?
Yeah, man, I'm from the bricks, man. I'm from the west side here in St. Louis.
What part of the
Yeah.
West Side you from?
So I grew up. So I was my earliest years of remembrance was in Walnut Park East on Plover, but where I grew up and where I claim from the west side, St. Louis Avenue and Clara.
Okay,
Um,
I'm from St. Louis Avenue and Sarah though, but the Ville though,
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah.
more east.
Yep. So right down the street, I sat in between. So on one end was Bear Brothers Park, and on the other end, and slightly around the corner was the Horseshoe. So that
Oh,
was
so yeah, you right on the other side of where Goodfellow bumps up to the park.
yeah, yep. So that's the block, man. So that's where I'm from,
They
and
had somebody told me historically that St. Louis Avenue stretch between Goodfellow and I guess it would be Clara then. It was like a whole bunch of black people that had money back in the day that lived on that block.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it, man. It's the neighborhood is kind of weird the way it sits because that area of St. Louis Avenue is like a really busy street. But I could tell that, over time some things had changed. Like it was an area where like some of my neighbors literally had like, man, they like huge gardens and stuff on the block and things of that nature, man. And obviously, very little of that stuff is just exists now. But it was the spot, man. Like we had a good time growing up over there, man. It was a safe place, was never unsafe on the block, and still got friends to this day from the block, and that was over 30 years ago, man.
So back to the horseshoe. I mean, unless you went over to the horseshoe, though, I don't know if the horseshoe's ever been safe.
Yeah, the horseshoe wasn't safe. Right. As soon as you went past, right after you went down St. Louis Avenue, you made that left on Clara,
Yep.
past like the first block down. Then we couldn't make no promises.
So you had to tell people like, yo, you don't ride your bike this way, you could go this way.
I can circle back around and bring it on back to the crib. So, but yeah, that was the spot, man. And I had a mixture of experience. I grew up with my mom. My mom had 3 kids. My dad, had other children. He was doing his thing. So my parents were never married. And so growing up, just kind of moved around from place to place. By the time I got to 6th grade, that was my 7th different school. And I had a mix of experience between public school. I was in magnet schools. I was in Catholic schools, and it wasn't ever a getting in trouble thing. It was just, my mom was doing what moms do. She was, doing the best she could. And, that was just the life. That was just like, as it was. And so by the time I got to 6th grade, I was in the Parkway School District. We had gotten into the voluntary desegregation program.
I was just reading about the DSEG's going to be over officially coming up next year.
Yeah, it's been phasing out over the course of the past few years. So, it was a different experience. I mean, I had a great time. Unfortunately, well, not going to say unfortunately, I had a fantastic time at Parkway Central High School. I learned a lot. I experienced a lot. Some of my closest friends, that I have are from that experience. Unfortunately, having that experience came at the cost of, what my neighborhood, what the block looks like today. So
Yeah, and
obviously
it's even
that's
interesting
hindsight.
even more when we talk about DSEG. The like I feel like some kids got, I wouldn't say they got the raw end of it, but I feel like if you didn't go like to one of the Parkway schools, Ladue or Clayton, and they would send you out to Melville, Oakville, where these kids was getting up at like 5 in the morning to go all the way out there to Lindbergh and stuff like
Yeah,
that. You
South
like,
County.
man, like they don't
Yeah,
even
so
feel
the
right.
zoning and stuff, and that's how that lottery system work. And a lot of times, parents are just doing what they thought they could
Yeah.
do to get kids, and didn't know anything, didn't know shit about the schools or the communities they were sending them kids to. If anybody would have known anything about South County, especially 30 years ago, they wouldn't have been sending no black children down there.
Yeah, to Eureka back then. Think about
Right,
Eureka in the
exactly.
90s when we was in high school. Like,
Yeah,
what?
exactly. And think about it, just the way we know it is today, think about what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah. So parents were just trying to do the best they
yeah.
could and understand, man. And I experienced that
You
every
luck
day.
you lucked up though at Parkway Central because you lucked up.
Yeah, I mean, it was still so based on the way I went about school. So I did early hour classes every year, my first 3 years. So it was still 5 o'clock,
Oh, they
catching
still was getting you up at 5 in the morning to go.
I was still because I was taking that extra class before school so I could get ahead on credits. And then I had sports. I played a sport every season. So every day for me was a 14-hour day. Every
Yeah,
day.
because you getting up at 5, you leaving at 6.
Yep, bus don't even athletic bus don't leave till 6:30. So and then that's getting to the crib, having to drop everybody else off. And I lived in Pagedale at the time when I was in high school, so I had to go to my grandma's house on the bus, and then my mom would come
So
pick
you
me up.
wouldn't get into the crib until 8:30.
I went at the crib till it was time to go to bed almost. You eat, try to get a little homework done, and then it's rinse and repeat.
Man. So you at Parkway Central. So what made you decide like, okay, academically I want to do this college thing. I want to take my talents to Missouri State.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So
Oh, Missouri, it was Southwest Missouri State then, right?
it was Southwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was Southwest, and that was a crazy story in and of itself. So I always knew that I would just because like I knew that I wanted something different. Like I didn't have models of men who had been to college or anything of that nature. That just wasn't what I had. But I knew I wanted. I learned by seeing all the things that I didn't want to do. So I would observe people, cousins, uncles, or whatever having. I was just like, nah, son, dad, no, that's not really what I want to do. And so my mom just kind of kept at least that much stability. So I had an opportunity. And then when I got to Central, it was like, okay, from the block, we never seen nothing like Chesterfield before. So being in these neighborhoods, and I'm like, damn, strict. And I'm at my teammate's house and they leave the doors unlocked and all this different stuff. And I'm like for real, we go out and they just like, oh, the parents would be like, okay, well, the door will be unlocked when y'all come in. We out all hours of the night and the doors unlocked when we come back. So, I always knew that I wanted something better. And that was just one conduit, one of the ways that I was going to make that happen. And I was going to college no matter what. That was just where I ended up and was able to put some of those pieces together.
Where'd you decide Missouri State?
So man, I got recruited by some smaller schools to play football, and I actually had an academic, full tuition academic scholarship to Mizzou that I ended up turning down, which was just dumb shit. That's a whole story behind that.
But, looking back, you was like, what was I thinking?
Listen, but Missouri State happened. Actually, it was Minority Student Weekend down there, and one of the recruiters, my brother, good brother of mine, he's literally like a brother to me, George Winston, who was working in admissions at the time down there, and got connected with him through my school. And me and a couple of my partners, man, went down there for Minority Student Weekend, and it just so happened a couple of our friends from high school were already students down there, so it was an easy transition. There was some familiarity, and we went down there, man, Minority Student Weekend, and turned up, man, had a good time. And I was like, okay, shit, it seemed like,
It's the look.
I get to work. So I investigated the football team and whatnot and introduced myself to the coaches, told them I was trying to pull up. And then I learned my best friend, he said that he was looking at going down there. So once I found out that he was going to go, and I was like, okay, well, shit, okay, then. I was like, it must be, I'll give it a look. So I visited like DePaul in Greencastle, Indiana. And
Paul, yeah. I remember
Milliken wanted me to come over and play football and some other stuff. But after I got down there and saw that, people that I legit rock with was already there, I was like, it seemed like the spot in the community of Black students, although it's very small, It was a tight knit community, man. We went down there and had a good time. A little bit too much fun.
So look at you, like, man, I should have went to Mizzou. You think that's that '90s Mizzou?
Man, you know, and that honestly, man, that Mizzou story, and I tell that story, I share that story as a part of my testimony, especially when I'm working with young people, man, because um, it's really it really emphasizes how much we need to lead and guide each other and have wisdom sources for each other. Because the reason I turned that scholarship down, man, was just lack of wisdom. So, you know, long story short, I was at Central. This was my senior year, and this was during track season that year. And so I actually happened to be standing in the counselor's office, and the guy who was supposed to be my counselor, I never went to him because one of my football coaches was a counselor, so I went to him to start a relationship. So I happened to be standing in the counseling center one day. The counselor looks out the door. He's like, "Oh, Etoya White's standing right here," and I was like, "What? Okay, cool." So I go hop on the phone, and so there's so many layers to this that are indicative of our kids' experiences. So I go and I'm in the office. I'm talking to the listener. I know this story like the back of my hand. The lady's name, the whole shebang. She's like, "Oh, you know, we've been looking for you, but the school didn't have the right phone number." That's one of those things, you know. You move in these different
Because
schools,
and you
whatever.
moving around, and you already said you was
I,
moving around a little bit here and
I
there.
updated the phone number. So she said, "My name is Latia King Westfall. I'm representing the University of Missouri." Boom, boom, bing, bing. She's like, "Okay, we've been looking for you. It's like we'd like to come sit down and talk to you and your family about, you know, an opportunity for you." I was like, "Okay, cool." It was track season. And so I told her, you know, "I got to meet this weekend. You can come over to the house on Tuesday next week after practice." She was like, "Cool." So she pulled up to the crib in you know, Paysdale or whatever have you. She sat down with me and my mom. We go through this interview. She tells me, "Well, we have this, you know, academic, this, you know, student leadership program or whatever. And if I came to Mizzou, they would pay my tuition for free. I just have to maintain a certain grade point average." Boom, boom, bing, bing, bing. I'm like, "Okay, cool." But we was virgins at the time. We didn't know nothing about this process, and my parents wasn't involved. I was doing all that shit on my
On
own.
your own, you on your own doing it.
Exactly. So she sits down and, you know, we go through the whole shebang. So she was like, full tuition. Now, me not thinking the value of full tuition at a school like Mizzou, obviously at 46, I understand that. At 17, I didn't know what she was talking about. So she said that, but what she said was, this was Tuesday. She was like, "Unfortunately, because we couldn't find you until now, we got to have an answer by Friday." So I was like, "Damn, I got to decide my whole life in 3 days." And for the real story, man, the real spill is I just didn't have guidance. I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I didn't know how to go or have this conversation with my parents because they didn't know nothing about that. I didn't know to go ask my counselor, like, you know, they saying they got this money for me, blah, 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 or anybody else at that juncture, because I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have any of that stuff. Didn't have that type of relationship with my coaches or none of that, where I could have said, where somebody could have just said, "Nigga, they said free. Do you understand what they just said to you right now?"
No loans, no nothing.
Bro, you are going to Mizzou, you are taking the money, boom, boom, bing, 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 and that would have been it. But unfortunately, I didn't have those pieces in place. So I called sis back that Friday and was just like, I'm gonna explore some other opportunities.
Wow.
And that
Mine
was
is the
it.
total opposite of that. Literally was not trying to go to Iowa State at all. Didn't like it was this counselor dude. Something met me at it. He went to a black college summit, and it was one. I would say it was one of the only PWIs there. He got my information. Called my grandmother. My grandmother helped him. Got with him to apply because I wouldn't apply. So I had applied like the Mizzou, all these schools on the East Coast, Chicago. I was like, "Nah, I ain't going there." They sent me a scholarship. My grandma told them I'm going. I went to
Wow.
Iowa State sight unseen. I did
Wow.
not see Iowa State until August 10th, 1999, when I stepped on campus.
Crucial.
Never
That's what's
saw
up.
it. I got a full
That's the
ride,
exact opposite.
everything.
Yeah.
Didn't even, my grandma was on it because I got in like Northwestern, a couple of schools, but they didn't give me no money. And she was like,
Yeah.
"They gave you money. I'm telling you going there." I was like, "What?"
Right.
Got me a Greyhound
Yeah.
bus ticket, and I had all my stuff.
Wow.
I was there.
That's a hell of a story right there. Yeah, see, man, my old dude, my old man, he was trying to get me. He was an army guy. He was trying to get me to go to the army. I was like, "Nah, son." And that was mostly like because again, lack of information. Now I'm keeping a buck, and I told my son, to my brother, I was like, "Listen, if my dad had legit sat down with me and was like, 'Listen, son, you can get your schooling paid for, you can get this, you can benefit this way, this. Because my dad was to say he had a nice job with the FAA. He was a flight supervisor with the FAA at the time that he died. He was doing, well for himself, whatever. All he had to do was say literally like three things. If he would have said, you can go to school for free, you'll be able to double dip for the rest of your life, and you can travel the world and have a smorgasbord of women. If he would have said that, I would have been in.
Yeah.
I would
And I don't even know why the Army doesn't lead with that in general. I've always said that, like, like these are three things you can do.
Yeah, that's all you really got to say. He's just been like, man, you can go and you can be a cook, you can be an engineer, you could do this, you can work on planes, you could do all these different things. So if he would have led with any of that stuff, it would have been a done deal, right? Especially where I was at 17, I would have been like straight up, and all I got to do is do this and blah, 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 blah.
It'd have been a done deal. It's like, you got me.
And that's a big part of the passion behind what I do, as an educator and as a mental health professional, man, is that there's so much teaching and wisdom that's necessary, man, because our young people are still, to this day, man, 30 years later, we still got kids, we still got systems that are not adequately supporting our kids. So like that's central. Like I didn't know anything about, the only thing I knew about HBCUs, bro, was from when I was a kid going to the Gateway Classic games and seeing Alcorn State play Howard and seeing
Alcorn State Howard,
it wasn't like that, bro. It was like none of us had information that directed us to schools that would adequately support us, where we could have had some different opportunities. Now, strangely, my first acceptance letter to a college or university came from Clark Atlanta. But I was like, man,
that'd have been the lick. That'd have been the lick.
No, that same thing. But from a wisdom standpoint, I told my mom was like, well, you know what, you should go to Clark because, we have a cousin down there, Dan's a, successful attorney, he can blah, 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 blah. But I was 17, I was like, Atlanta, okay. I'm a late bloomer. I'm a hot nigga right now. If I go down here and get with all these ladies, I'm gonna be in trouble.
And you would have been down there Freaknik too.
Exactly. So that means I would have been right back home. And immediately, I would have been right back to the.
You know what? I always wondered somebody would have did some research. How many people went to school there? Like, what was the recidivism rate for students, and then versus 5 years after Freaknik was over?
Listen, bro. Listen, there was so many empty dormitories back then. After them, kids that didn't make it back. Yeah, the recidivism rates. So that is that experience, man, just that DSEG not being connected to culturally relevant counseling services for our kids, not getting adequate test prep and things of that nature, because 30 years ago, it wasn't none of the stuff that we had. And we had, some of our teammates, their parents could pay $400 for them to take an ACT class. Bro, I rolled out the bed, went to Untitled to take my ACT after a game, B. We didn't know nothing about no ACT, bro, and they didn't adequately prepare us for it either. Now, I got a good score for that long ago, you know what I'm saying?
That was a straight off intellect. That wasn't like knowing the test.
Bro, that was rolling out the bed with some Cinnamon Toast Crunch. That wasn't adequate test prep, bro. So it's just like, man, there's so many of the same things are still happening today where we have more access to more things, but we're still not putting the adequate structures in place, man, to really support our kids. So, now their kids are getting some breaks because, kids are able to get into school, the test scores are getting waived and all that stuff, but they're still not being adequately prepared to survive, in those situations and be able to access mental health resources and be able to adjust, to those different types of transitions and things of that nature. So it's a lot of college kids struggling, man, especially in that first year, because they get to places and, social connectedness and things of that nature that they don't get in right away. And this is HBCU, PWI, or whatever.
Right. It's almost like it's extremes. Like either you got too much kicking it going on, or you isolated because you in like somewhere random remote where it's nothing really going on at all and there's no Black community.
Because nobody taught you how to find the right fit for what needs are. It's just about, go here, do this, whatever have you, this is where the money is and that type of thing. And if it's not the right fit, man, it could be harmful for a lot of kids, man.
So what made you decide to get into education? So you're at Missouri State. What made you decide, man, I want to be in the education field and educate?
Yeah, man. I always wanted to do it, but I kind of took the circuitous route because of what I thought based off of things that I saw. So again, another part when I'm doing, speaking engagements and things, and I'm talking to young people, especially young brothers, I tell them like, look, man, it took me 10 years to get my undergrad degree. I went to 4 different schools. I dropped out for 3 years and I changed my major 6 times. All because I didn't have guidance. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what questions to ask, none of that stuff. So when I left, man, I kind of actually like the class that impacted me the most during my time at Parkway Central. I had, AP class, honors class, whatever have you. But the class that impacted my time the most was a class that I had called peer counseling. And it was literally a semester-long group counseling class that was led by one of the counselors. And that opened my eyes. I was like, man, I would like to, I knew I wanted to be in that setting. I just didn't know exactly how to make it work. So, I mean, I was a marketing major, recreational therapy. I was business, psychology, MIS. I mean, I went all around the block.
Man, I remember that MIS degree was a big deal back when we was in college, boy.
It was, man. It was, because everything was about this change over the technology, and everybody was doing, the C++ and the COBOL.
Is MIS even a degree still?
I think they're more specialized now.
Okay, because I was like, it was at the General Management Information Systems. That was
MIS or CIS was back in the Missouri State. We had CIS, Computer Information Systems. So after I dropped out, I went back because my 10-year reunion was coming up, and I was like, I'm not going to my 10-year reunion without my degree. So I went back to UMSL, re-enrolled, got my degree in general studies, and I actually moved to Chicago. I took a job in corporate sales with a Fortune 500 technology company up there. And while I was working, man, I really just missed. I'd always been in teen ministry, youth teen ministry. I miss working with kids. And so God just moved on. I applied for grad school for the counseling program at UMSL. And once I got in, packed everything up, moved back to St. Louis, took a job with the family court of St. Louis County as a DJO in the detention center, and worked my way through.
Man, you was at the DJO.
Yeah. I've been around the block once or twice. So.
Woo. And in Chicago, where was you at in Chicago?
I was in the northwest suburbs.
Okay.
I was in a city called Palatine because my office.
Yeah, I know what Palatine is. Yeah.
I was way up north, so I hung out still with the bros on the south side, Hyde Park, and all that stuff.
That take you forever though to get from the northwest side down to the south side. That's an hour. You might as well drive to St. Louis at that point.
Man, that was a trek, bro. It was a trek. But
you better stay somewhere. You better stay somewhere that night.
By myself.
That's one of the nights you stay somewhere. Like, all right,
right, no doubt about it.
Like I'm overnight somewhere. I don't know where I'm staying.
Fortunately, exactly. Fortunately, Fortunately, my line brother lived on the west side, so
so you was good. You didn't have that far. You didn't have that far of a trek. So you end up pledging the fraternity as well.
Yeah, man. Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, greatest fraternity in the world. November 11, 1995. So
at Missouri State or at UMSL?
Yeah, at Missouri State, Rokai Chapter, Missouri State University. So yeah, man. So it's been this November be 27 years. So yeah, man. You've been in the frat longer than some people have been alive. Yeah, man.
Like some of them kids.
It's been a blessing, man. Met some phenomenal brothers, man, and that have been a blessing to my life, and just having the opportunity to do networking all around the world. And so yeah, man, it's been a fantastic experience for me.
So then you start you come back to UMSL, go to graduate school, you work with the DJO, all these things are kind of impacting you and pulling you away. What made you decide to get into the mental health space for
so good question, man. So I was working as DJO, and then in my master's program, I decided to do a dual track. So in the counseling program, there's a school counseling program and a community counseling program. And I actually took all the classes on both sides. So I would have actually had double masters, but I only did field experience on the school side. So I knew I wanted to be a school counselor because I wanted to coach high school football. So I knew I was going to do that. And I also the reason I went into school counseling is because I wanted to be for kids what I didn't have available to me. And because there's not, there just wasn't a lot of Black males in that profession. And so I did that. And so I knew I was going to be a therapist. It was about the timing and how to get my license and all that stuff. So once I did, I started working on my, license hours along the way or whatever. And after I figured out, how I would do that, and I realized that at some point I would want to be in private practice. And the reason why There's because like being in the school, it was dope. Phenomenal relationships, but I wanted to get deeper into, being able to support our kids and our culture. And school didn't necessarily allow me, as the school counselor, I'll say, I couldn't get deeper into those relationships. And because we have so many kids to, service. Hell, when I was at, McClure North, the 2013-2014 school year, I was an 11th grade counselor. I had 402 kids. I couldn't, you know what I'm saying?
Man,
I knew all of them.
that's
Yeah,
a
I knew
lot
all
of
of them and
kids.
had a lot of, relationships or whatnot, and I still have great relationships with a lot of those kids to this day, but I didn't have that opportunity to really get deeper into what they needed in terms of support. So I'm able to do that now, as a therapist, and because I work for myself, I get to make the rules.
So how was that being having that many amount of kids? I mean, you just basically got them all alphabetical order, and I'm just going, okay, I got Johnson, Carey, and Lemoyne this week, like, because I'm going.
So at North, I appreciated the opportunity that I had at North, man. It was actually one, I really, really enjoyed my time at McClure North because we traveled with our grade level.
Okay,
So
okay.
I had kids. After I left, I ended up moving to Atlanta after that year, but I would have stayed with those kids all the way through graduation, which is how I feel. So I don't like the alphabetical splits because counselors really don't get to focus on the needs of those kids in that grade level. Everybody should rotate. If you get these kids as a freshman, you should be with them all the way until they graduate so they can maintain those relationships and connections with those families. So I had the opportunity to do that at North, and that was a pretty big deal.
What was one of the things you saw from students that was like the key indicator of like, man, okay, we need this to be able to get kids to this next level?
Um, Man, a couple of things. Some kids just there's some intangibles, right? And I
Hmm.
think relationships is the main thing, man. Like, because some kids, they have all the best intentions in the world, but they just don't have supportive enough relationships that get them connected to some of those, intangible things, like you know, getting them on campuses for visits. When I was at Live for Life Academy, I started the counseling program. I was the founding school counselor at Live for Life Academy for their high school back in 2008. I started a college tour program because I understood for Black and Brown kids or kids in from Black and Brown spaces, it's important to get them on campus so they can touch, taste, hear, feel, smell, ask questions, visualize themselves, that see other Black students on these campuses and all these things and experience. And that changed lives, bro, because a
Yeah.
lot of kids are walking around and they don't have a vision for it. And so all they know, much like I said earlier, when I was growing up on the West Side, I didn't know nothing about Chesterfield, nothing at all. And so for us to be able to, we had a very limited view, but getting these kids out for exposures helps them to broaden their vision for what's actually possible in life. And then it becomes about getting them plugged in academically, getting them plugged into purpose, things they do well, talents they have, and all of that. And then showing them how they can use that to be successful and cause change in their lives and in their families and communities, man.
Like, have you tracked, or are you mentally like, man, like I remember I went to a seminar once, and the guy was talking about he was it was like a TED talk, and he was basically like saying like he had followed this kid, helped this kid out for so long because he had found out the kids, he was on the scene when the kid brother was killed or whatever. He showed a picture of him crying, upset about this in Chicago about it. And then he was trying to help him out. He said he fell off with the kid. 10 years later, that kid has killed somebody else. And it
Wow.
was literally, he was like just opposing like this kid crying because his brother was killed and then him having murdered someone
Yeah.
like 10 years later.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
like, he was like, man, he said it really hit him. Like, yo, like I was with this kid when he was 10, now he's 20, and he's going to be locked up for life.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have situations like that, man, where like doing the work that we do, and especially when I was a counselor, I worked, only in spaces, urban core spaces, and had those situations, man. Walked up to school and found out I got messages that kids that got murdered that I had close relationships with, and as an educator, nothing tests your mettle until you get a phone call or a text message that one of your students was killed. Like nothing tests your mettle like that. And to have to go to funerals and see some of my kids in boxes, man, was just, bro, it was mind-boggling. I had literally, I think the very first one was a girl. was a young lady. My first student that I lost to violent crime was a young lady who got, beautiful young lady, man, but she was trouble. She was always fighting, always in trouble. She has such a big personality, but I was able to break down some of those walls and have a good relationship with her. And she would, no matter how much, she would always stop by my office, poke her head in and speak and all these different things. Whenever she got in trouble or was wilding out, they'd call me and I would be able to get her to, emotionally regulate and think and so on. Got to school one day over the summer. I can't remember what school year it was. I think this was the 2011, 2012 school year. Pulled up to McCool, South Berkeley, man, was having a meeting, at summertime or whatever. Principal and assistant principal roll up to me and was like, hey, hate to have to tell you this, man, but such got killed last night. She got shot to death last night. And I was like, what?
Was it accidental or was it like?
I guess she was just with a crowd of people. She was somewhere on the south side. We was in, we in Berkeley and Ferguson and whatnot. She was somewhere on the south side, man, and somebody sprayed a corner where she was in a group and they sprayed the corner, man, and she got chopped down. And that was the first one, man, and it just touched my soul a different way, bro. And I experienced that before with, when I was a DJ, when I was working in a detention center, kids that we would work with, man, and build relationships with, and then next thing you know, you see them in the world or in the paper or whatever because, they done committed a different crime and now they getting certified as adults. I got those too. I got kids doing bids, in situations like that. So absolutely, man, we encounter situations like that, on a regular basis.
And what's so crazy especially for us cats, me being a North Side cat, you being a West Side cat, it like I was talking to one of my homies, like, dude, like way too many people that have died, like that, like, and I'm but you don't. Yes, you don't trip off because you do trip off of, but you don't because you're just moving through life and matriculating. Like, all right, man, you harp on it, but then you start really thinking about it. You're like, yo, dang, such and such dead, such and such dead. He locked up.
Yep.
He's dope. But then you have a flip of a whole bunch of people because you have great energy you're rolling with that are dope people too. So it's like, at least for me, I always feel like it's not survivor's remorse. It's kind of like in between words because I know so many great people too, though, that I met as well that I wouldn't have ever met if I didn't keep, moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about it, man. It's just that, having that baseline to go back to, right, and not making myself responsible for other people's emotional condition and just being able to get centered on myself and be like, yo, like, what God has for me is for me. And I got to be mindful of that, and not taking on, not internalizing other people's experiences like that. Obviously, want to show compassion and things of that nature. But it's like, okay, I don't know what factors, what moving pieces contributed to that person's demise or whatever have you, man. We just, keep showing empathy, for each other and trying to keep those connections as strong as we possibly can. But understand that, life happens. Struggle is a part of the human condition. And that's, we got to figure out ways to get recentered.
So how did you start the business, the counseling business? Like, how did you make, like, I'm gonna do this on my own. Tired of, with all these kids. I'm tired of these kids trying doing TikToks of me. I'm tired of them. What was it? The TikTok telling me to like beat up teachers or something. What was that, like, last year?
Wow, man. I'm glad I wasn't around when none of them shenanigans going on because I probably would have lost my certification. But yeah, man. So I had moved away to Atlanta for a couple of years, and I already knew that I was going to go into private practice. I knew I was going to be a therapist because I wanted the option to do both. I wanted to be able to work in schools, but then also work, private practice. So I had actually started the process before I moved to Atlanta, got down there. It took me a little while to get adjusted, ended up getting a school position down there, and I was still trying to figure out how I would integrate, getting into private practice. And then when I moved back to St. Louis in 2017, I was still working in the schools, but then I really went into get my supervision hours because I needed to get 3,000 hours of licensed supervision. Got connected in that area, man, and really just started grinding it out because I knew, my focus would be, to work for myself, still be connected to schools, but I wanted to change it because I just didn't want anybody to be able to dictate the level of impact I would have, civically, socially, or whatever have you, as, in terms of civic leadership. And so that was the driving force behind it. I contract with schools. Obviously, I'm a consultant as well. Do school-based, mentoring. I stay connected to schools in that way. But in terms of, just the actual work that I do, private practice was definitely a move for me.
So, what is your practice? So, if you just said to say like you're pitching it to somebody, and they like, I want to get some counseling. What is it that you provide in your kind of your vision with what you provide in your counseling?
Yeah, good question, though. So I provide individual, marital, couple, group, and family dynamic counseling services. I'm also a life relationship and performance coach, also education and mental wellness consultant. So I do that. My office is in Olivet, right in the building where the radio
You're right
station
down the
is.
street from me.
Yeah, I'm right there. Yep. And so I'm in that building on the second floor, suite 205. And yeah, man, I tell everybody my delivery style is very different. Much how I present in this, in this media is the same way that I present as a therapist.
Man, what's the craziest thing you heard? Because I've had my homegirl Marshall Lee on. She was like one of my first guests. She's a therapist, but like more in actually like in mental institutions.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like people coming in with straps, all kind of stuff where they really are impacted, and she gave some stories about that. Like, what is something you'd be like, yo, bro, if I told you this, like you wouldn't even believe it.
Yeah, I don't, man. I really,
Not you ain't never had
like,
nothing that's like super outside bounds, like where you like, I'm like
no,
playing
no,
on
no.
episode of Dynasty,
I think
where
no, more than anything for me, it's just been um, hearing people's stories, right?
yeah.
And that's been the thing for me. It's not been anything outrageous. I haven't had any, guns. Nobody's coming. I mean, I had some people come in. They might, have been smoking or something like that, but I haven't really had. For me, it's just people's stories, man. Because like, when I share this with people, like, so people's trauma story, like your trauma story, is the most intimate personal possession you have. Like
Mm.
people will give away sex and money before they give away their trauma story. So it's the power of sitting there and having somebody share the deepest parts of themselves that nobody else knows about. That for me that's where the magic happens. So I haven't had, and just sitting there and just understand, like, damn, like some of the things that people have had to have the courage and strength to endure and overcome, even to just be able to sit in front of me. That's really it for me, man. I just listen. I'm just like, fuck, like,
Have you ever
yeah,
heard somebody's story where you like, you for real, this your story? Like where you like they hold on to somewhere, it's like you haven't even heard these other stories
I
and you
have,
holding on to this, like
I have,
you don't even know like what you missed. You've been in a blessed position. You
I
just mad
have,
because your dad didn't get you a Corvette in '92, and you
yeah.
and this woman over here has been raped by her dad. You know what I mean? Like,
And so there have been situations where I've heard some ancestral type things, and I'm just, and obviously I'm holding a straight face, but inside I'm just like,
yo, like
damn, bro, like, and I couldn't imagine. And obviously, naturally, I think back to, my relationship with my dad before he passed away, or my relationship with my mom, or any other, and I just couldn't imagine like what something like this would have looked like in my life. Like if somebody that I trusted or had, but that's also the impact pathologically for the people who experience these things, and how we end up with PTSD and all these unresolved, childhood trauma issues, man, is like that stuff is real for a lot of people, man. A lot of people.
so if somebody comes into you, what is like kind of the baseline of like how you would go about for people for they could if they want to come to you, how would they feel comfortable in coming in? How was your counseling sessions kind of set up for people?
Yeah, so the first session, I tell everybody after we get into, how I work and how I operate, and I explain my delivery style. I do a lot of education for my clients, and I help them understand that because I'm a Black male therapist, and people speak my name, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm the best fit for you. I explain to them that this part of this is, an interview, right? And I empower them to ask me questions about my experience, about my background, or whatever have you, and those pieces are critically important for clients to understand, because a lot of times when we get people, they're in crisis mode, like they're at the tipping point, they're in crisis mode, and they're ready to come in, they're ready to vomit. But I take the time to educate them about, this process for them. And I tell them everybody doesn't need therapy, but everybody needs relationships. Therapy is a relationship. And so I walk them through that process so that they can be disarmed and feel comfortable. And I explain to them as well about their trauma story. This is your personal, intimate space, and I want you to make sure you're giving it to the right person.
That's real. That's super real. So what is reasons that people should be going to therapy? Where because I know that that's been kind of a hot button topic. Some people
Yeah.
are still resistant towards it. what reasons do we people, particularly us as black people, because we already come in the gate, I feel, with like you born and you got 10 years of trauma off the top and you 6 months years old. At least in my
Yeah,
mind. Like you feel like you got 10 years previously already out the birth wagon. But why
yeah.
should people go in therapy in general or at least get counseling in
Yeah,
general?
man. I think if for no other reason, just to check in. Some people just have just experienced things and just need to vomit, in a space that's non-judgmental. You just might need to, if you're at a point where you're unsure about some decisions or where you want to go in life, it's a great place to go and just order your thoughts. It doesn't have to be about being pathologized. Now that's the issue, especially for Black and brown folks, because in order for therapists to build insurance companies, there has to be a diagnosis of some kind. But it's not necessarily to pathologize everybody. Some people just need help. And so that's that space, man. If you're at a point where you're some things from your childhood, you feel like you have some unresolved childhood trauma, you experience some grief and loss, and you need to make sense of it or understand that like grief is a real thing and it's okay to be where you are. Sometimes people just need to learn some new skills. If you're having parenting issues, if you have an impasse with your kids, if you have a communication struggles in your marriage, like listen, there's nothing wrong with. It's literally like a tune-up on your car. That's it, man. Just come in and sit down. It doesn't have to be for 6 months or 6 years. It could be 2 or 3 sessions where you just get the opportunity to hear yourself say some things that'll cause you to be able to process and make some different decisions. So that's the importance of us personalizing it and making sure that we explain what it should be like to people so they can understand what therapy really is about, because a lot of people are still led by, unfortunately, the historical trauma that's associated with it from a discrimination, bias standpoint, et cetera. So we have to work extra hard to break those walls down for our people so they feel safe.
What do you do as a therapist when you need to go, like the TV show In Treatment? What do you do when you need to? Because you're taking on all these other people's
Yeah.
traumas and they're bonding to you as well. Because I mean, if anybody's empathy has any empathy, you're gonna take that on kind of mentally. What do you do for your
So yeah, man. And actually, it's interesting you asked that because I'm in the process. I'm looking for a new therapist for myself right now. All of us should have therapists. We need to go to therapy. That's critically important, if for no other reason than to decompress and process. Because it's not like we're not living life. It's not like I
yeah?
don't have teenagers living in my house that I'm taking care of. That's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? All this different stuff, man. And I have a personal self care. We have to be intentional about practicing the things that we teach, because we do experience tap out, burnout, compassion fatigue, and some of these other things, secondary traumatic stress, all these different things, man. And so I plug in the personal self-care, and that's, things that I practice on a regular basis, regardless of whether or not I encounter stress, and it helps me to keep my emotional levels balanced. So I'm intentional about that.
Man, all right. Well, this is the last part of our interview. The hardest part is called This or That. You only get you got two choices. You only can choose one.
All right,
That's it. All right. Fresh Prince or Martin.
Martin.
Okay. Okay. All right. OJ Simpson or Walter Payton.
Walter Payton.
You didn't want to go that OJ route.
I was a Payton fan. I was a Payton guy. I was a sweetness guy, flat out.
All right. Tecmo Bowl or Madden.
Shit.
They get harder and harder.
Man, ooh,
People
I'm gonna,
understand the Tecmo Bowl one time. I mean, I know that people have been hurt and accosted from Madden games, but Tecmo Bowl would literally be cheating you
man,
because
listen.
there was no AI. It was literally just
Nope, that's it. And whoever had Bo Jackson or Barry Sanders, they was gonna win the game.
yep,
Them
yep,
was
yep, yep.
unstoppable.
And then LA had Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen. Remember, you could throw it
Yeah,
in flat.
man. Yeah, man. Man, Tecmo Bowl definitely has the nostalgia piece, but I'm gonna go Madden on that one.
Okay, you gonna go Madden on it. All right. This one is a triple threat match. All right. New Jack City, Juice, or Boys in the Hood.
You know what? I'm gonna go because it related to where I was. It had, it's a special place in my life. I'm gonna go New Jack.
New Jack. All right.
I'm going New Jack.
If hip hop or football, one of them has to go. Everything in its history has to go. Period. In the situation, like either hip hop or football.
Uh, wow, that's real crucial, bro.
Like
That's
that doesn't
real
exist. Like if you say, all right, I'm gonna keep football, hip hop has never existed, it's just wiped off earth, and vice versa. For if you say hip hop, football has never existed, is never in the world.
man. Um, woo. Uh, that's really, you know what? Man, hip hop. I'm gonna go football, man. I think I don't know if I could. Not as much now, but what hip hop meant to my childhood
Yeah.
versus what football meant to my childhood, I think they're very so. I learned the most important things about myself as a high school football player, college player, pledge my fraternity, everything that involved togetherness with brothers. You see what I'm saying? Being a part of a team. But hip hop was like even
Does hip
before
hop
I got.
educate anymore? Like, think about how you would hear something from a line, you'd be like, dude, I gotta go to the library. What the hell is
You
this
know
mean?
what, man? I think that's the so. I
Or it's
think that's
easier for them maybe because they just Google it. Then like I can
I
just
think that's the issue with my answer, right? In stages of life. So up to a certain point in my life, definitely hip hop, because hip hop got us through like some trouble spots. But now where I am now is football because my kids don't play football, they play basketball. But I coached and keep staying connected with high school and college football and provide mental health services to athletes and things of that nature. So I'm gonna reverse that based off of what you just said about the culture of hip hop being different, because the hip hop that raised us is the hip hop that was about us. See what I'm saying? And so I'm gonna switch that. I'm gonna say if we're talking about the way hip hop looks today, yeah, I'm cool on that.
no, it's period hip hop. So you don't get any of the past either. So you losing Kumo D, you losing Karis One, you losing Public Enemy,
You know
you
what?
losing Nas J.
I'm gonna still say hip hop only because what I said before. I'm gonna say I could do without hip hop, the history of hip hop, because high school football, college football helped me learn lessons about myself as a man that I would not have otherwise learned.
Okay. All right. Nas or Jay-Z?
Jay-Z all day.
Okay. Jay-Z all day. That's self-explanatory with that. There's not too much to put on top of that.
I never really been a Nas guy.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Nia Long or Halle Berry?
Tracy upstairs. Nia, definitely Nia. I'm a Nia Long guy. Nia Long.
It's interesting. If we'd have asked this question 20 years ago, we probably would all say Halle Berry. But Nia is like the wine start getting better. It's like it's set in the vineyard, getting better and better over the time.
Yeah, her and Regina King, bro. They just
but nobody would have said that 20 years ago. Keep that in, like if you'd have got us in 99, 98, nobody would have said that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. It's time, and like they've been able to age what time was. What I'm saying is why I'm seeing a lot of them, a lot of those answers changing. All right,
absolutely.
Three. It's another triple threat.
All right.
You have Snowfall, Power, or The Wire.
So I'm gonna expose myself to God's people by saying that of all three of those, Power is the only one where I've actually watched more than one episode. Dude, I've never seen The Wire, and I've never.
Look, you got HBO Max.
Yeah, Tracy does.
John, I'm sorry. Start tonight. I guarantee you watch the first episode. If you ain't got nothing to do tomorrow because it's the brother Martha King's birthday,
right?
You will be up all night. I trust me.
That's what I've been hearing, man.
No, I'm saying just watch the 30. Just watch 30 minutes. Watch the first 10, and you gonna be like, "Oh, I gotta figure out what is this going on."
And I've heard that about The Wire, man. Somebody told me like, bro,
yes,
when you put The Wire on, you're not gonna.
And you're a counselor. There's a whole season on school counseling.
Wow. Yeah.
The fourth season is all about just schools.
I need to go ahead and do that, man. I get so busy with these teenagers ripping and running out of these basketball gyms, man. I never get really the opportunity to sit still. And,
I'm telling you, The Wire will change. You get to season 4, text me. You're gonna be like, yo, what is this going on?
Like, bruh.
Like, because every season is a different industry within the city. So the first season gets you introduced. The second season is the docks. The third season is the structure of the police. The fourth season is the schools. The fifth season is journalism. Like and it's all in government and stuff like this, and like literally everything is connected.
Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that.
And all these people you gonna see, you gonna be like, oh, this is where all these people came from. That's dope actors now.
Yeah, you convinced me. Now I'm gonna have to check it out. I'm gonna
Dude,
have to go ahead.
it's gonna change your whole thing. Power is like going to watch Knots Landing or whatever compared to like what The Wire was doing.
Right. Yeah, I need to do that, man. You definitely of the three, that's definitely the one that I've heard the most about. So I'm gonna go ahead and sit down and get my life together.
Yeah, you gotta get that together, man.
Yeah.
All right. This next one is another triple threat match. All right.
All right.
Outkast, UGK, or Mobb Deep for duos.
So Mobb Deep is out. Outside of Shook Ones too. That's the joint. And then I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go Outkast. I'm gonna have to go Outkast. Slightly above UGK. I'm gonna have to go with Outkast.
All right, so this is a new school rapper discussion. Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole?
J. Cole. J. Cole's more consistent.
Okay. All
J. Cole's more consistent. K. Dot, I'm still K. Dot ebbs and flows. J. Cole's a little bit more consistent.
Sade or Anita Baker?
Yikes, man, that's bro. But I'm gonna go Anita because that was my crush when I was a little boy. If I ever was an older one, cougar, Anita Baker was my cougar back in the day. And just her music, man, is just kind of definitely Anita Baker.
All right, Janet Jackson or Mariah Carey?
Janet Jackson.
Janet Jackson. All right. All right. Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey?
Whitney.
Okay.
Houston. Yeah, I've always been closer to Whitney's music than Mariah. So yeah.
Okay. This is a city battle for hip hop. All right.
All right.
You take the best MCs from Detroit versus the best MCs from Chicago versus the best MCs from Atlanta. Who you got? I took LA and New York out because there's so many of them.
Yeah. So Detroit,
Chicago.
Yeah, Detroit, Atlanta. Chicago, Atlanta. So we got are we still counting Kanye as Chicago?
Yeah. I mean, you got to.
We got we got Chance. I'm not a big Chance fan, but okay. Where Royce the 5'9" is
Detroit. That's Detroit. Him, Eminem.
Him and M, and then Breed.
Big Sean is Detroit too.
Big Sean is Detroit. Breed was Detroit. And then you said Atlanta.
Yep.
I'm gonna probably go. I'm probably go Chicago.
Okay. Because you got Twisted involved with that. You got.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm probably go Chicago. Yeah, I'm gonna probably go Chicago just because. Calm and then College Dropout, just significance of some of that music, and even though Outkast and a lot of other guys represent Atlanta and the deep, it's been deep down there. I'm gonna give where are we counting Rick Ross? We count Rick Ross as Atlanta or
no, that's Florida. I would say Miami.
Okay, I'm gonna say okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go comfortably with Chicago on this one.
All right, best city to kick it in between these two, New Orleans or Vegas?
Dang, it depends on what type of kicking.
Hey, and this question actually depends on how old you are too. I realize as well.
So I mean, I've been to both. I haven't. I guess for the type of New Orleans and that food though. I haven't really ever actually kicked it in Vegas. I mean, I went, it was vacation, it was a relaxing vacation. I'd probably say New Orleans, man. Maybe because of where I am in life right
No,
now.
that's all. I think New Orleans is more. I think Vegas is more when you're younger and you single.
Yeah,
You kind of in the streets a little bit. That's Vegas.
right.
New Orleans, you could kick it a little bit. I could lay back and get some food, some jazz,
It's all
nice
about that
drinks.
food and them grooves, man. Yeah,
Yeah, and I go and give me a nice long sleep and wake up 11, 12, go do it again,
that's
hang
it. Go
out.
get you some beignets and a coffee, and then go
Yep.
do that shit again.
Yeah, Vegas, I got to go hard the whole time.
Right,
I got to go hard 24
right.
hours.
Ain't no tap out.
No,
Right, right.
until it make you tap out on that flight back. That's when it
Yeah,
make you tap out.
no doubt about it.
All right, this is the last question. May be the hardest one, and a lot of people have through their controllers if they say at this one rapper has to go. All their music, all their influence goes out. The Notorious B.I.G. or Tupac. Who's like if you let the other one go, their music doesn't exist, and their influence doesn't exist.
I'm gonna have to say, honestly, one of them has to go. The operative word here is influence, so I'm gonna have to let go of B because he really didn't have social influence like Pac did.
Yeah, and you got to think how many rappers are clones of Pac.
Exactly, no doubt about it. And on multiple levels, right? Rappers who became actors, entertain, that level of thing. And so Pac really did some things that a lot of guys didn't really do. And not only that, he was super talented doing it. And so, that was just, yeah, in terms of influence, man, it's just bars wise, that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
The combination, definitely Pac, no question about it.
All right, Etoya, thank you for coming on Mike Checka, my man. I appreciate this, man.
Man,
Where
no
can people
doubt,
hit you
man.
up social wise, and if they want to get counseling or reach out to you?
Yeah, man. So everybody can hit me up on Facebook. Look me up by name. I actually have a group on Facebook for my private practice.
Yeah, I'll link that in the show notes for everybody too, they can
no
check it
doubt.
out.
I'm on I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram by name. I'm on TikTok by name.
You got a TikTok?
Yeah, I do some TikTok, man, just to put some videos out from time to time, man, just because people are everywhere and just however I can reach young people and, because there'll be people that I can get to on TikTok that aren't on Facebook or they might not be on IG or whatever have you. So I haven't been super, super active, but I drop some nuggets on there from time to time. My t-shirt and apparel store is still going.
Yeah. Where can they get the t-shirts?
Yeah, that's shoptheretees.com. That's shoptheretees.com. And then my website, etoyawhite.com. You can find all of that stuff, on etoyawhite.com, man. That's where people come in, they can leave messages, ask about, or just shoot me an email, coaching@etoyawhite.com. But all my contact information is on the website. My private practice phone number, all of that stuff can be found on the website.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this, my brother. I appreciate it so much, man.
No doubt, man. It's been long overdue, fam.
Yeah, man. Peace, y'all.